This presentation begins referencing Orson Welles, Herbie Hancock, and the magic of accidents. I had a professor in my undergrad that would say, if your plan is to draw something in your sketchbook and then replicate it exactly, then you're hardly making art. He taught me to navigate through Murphy's Law. Whatever can happen will happen, which relates to the interview with Virilio, where he talks about the invention of the ship was also the invention of the shipwreck. In my own practice, art for me is a series of accidents and mistakes that lead to a successful body of work. And I've actually struggled with planning and storyboarding, and often I go into shooting my videos by building props, the set, the character's dress and mannerisms, and I walk around and I think until I find a shot. I record again from a different angle, and then I repeat. Quotes from the Paul Virilio interview. What do you think of the media craze about the Large Hadron Collider? When Oppenheimer and the rest of them pressed the on button of Trinity, they didn't know how far the disintegration would go. They didn't know whether space itself would disintegrate. Oppenheimer said it himself, maybe we committed a scientific sin. We took a risk that we couldn't grasp. Plus, they named the bomb Trinity. You can see the religious connotation. In the book that I'm now writing about the Large Hadron Collider, I attack them hard. The response is, I guess I should have known your answer, considering it's a machine that accelerates particles to make them collide. But do you think that the risk really exists? Personally, this reminds me of a reading from Collision of Ideas and the perspective of Sergei Einstein. He is debating another about what a montage is in film, and he suggests that montage is not built up by a linkage of shots, but rather he describes montage in terms of physics. There is a poetic description of montage and cuts building upon one another, thus creating a moving engine, and he draws the conclusion that linkage between shots in a film is potentially by chance. He describes these shots as a dance where the linkage is not linkage, but collision, each frame and scene colliding into each other with emotion and power. So in the interview, when he talks about Oppenheimer and how there was the potential to ignite the atmosphere, I feel like this action is a part of this continuous collision of actions that drive the story forward. And Virilio is judging the Hadron Collider, which just adds to their unknown collision of events that could potentially lead to our destruction. The Accident of Art by Paul Virilio. Eyeless voyeurism. Yes, exactly. What's more, it's a closed loop and accompanied by inertia. You know what I wrote in Polar Inertia? We are in the process of developing structures in a one-sided container in a villa in which we are enclosed. We've painted ourselves in a corner, so to speak, by resorting to optics. Virilio mentions a text from Jean Baudrillard referring to Loft Story. The quote is as follows. In this manner, the artificial microcosm of Loft Story, which is a French version of Big Brother, is identical to Disneyland, which provides the illusion of the real external world, while if one looks deeper, one realizes they are one and the same. The entire United States is Disneyland, and we are all on Loft Story. No need to enter into the idea of the virtual double of reality. We are already there. The televisual universe is nothing more than a holographic detail of global reality, all the way up to and including the most daily parts of our existence. We are already within a situation of experimental reality, and it is precisely from this that we have the fascination by immersion of spontaneous interactivity. This reminds me of a writing exercise I once learned from Quentin Tarantino. He stated that when he began to write scripts and stories, he would write until he wrote himself into a corner. Then he would have to problem solve, change details, and adjust plot lines so the corner is solved before the story reaches that point. Or, in some cases, even roll with the corner that had been made and have this issue dealt with on screen. I believe there may be a way of physically making in this way. To build until a problem presents itself, not due to lack of planning, but due to no planning at all. I suggest an exercise of developing a beginning of an idea, then creating an art object, or writing, or film, where you start and adjust when a wall is hit. I think this could be a stretching of our failure adaptation ability, a deep dive into this experimental reality, or even a brief detour away from the televisual universe. This universe that we've created in this echo chamber or this enclosed villa that is constantly informing what we are doing. If we make it a part of our practice to purely create something that may start out as a reflection of what we see every day, but then into something that genuinely evolves based on its own transforming attributes, a palate cleanser to get away from the aesthetic pollution that Paul mentions. Failure as art and art history as failure. For all these reasons, such an understanding of failure still comprehends a seductive idea of progression, echoing Samuel Beckett's famous words, "Ever tried, ever failed, no matter, try again, fail better." Mark Gottlieb talks about the artistic misery in the mad artist that often becomes popular. In my own practice, my own aesthetic is created from the mindset of a tortured engineer, though I myself am not tortured nor an engineer. When in my studio, I begin to separate myself from my current practice. I have the specific schedule of when I allow myself to be thrown into the sculptures that I am building. My studio becomes a busy workshop, and I become my character. I feel like this way of working that I've developed allows my failures to become not Chandler's failures, but the artist's failures. Obviously, like it's stated on page 3 of Failure as Art and Art History as Failure, many of these artists work precisely towards the unobtainable, using processes of trial and error, which are then visible in the artworks themselves. By doing so, they stress the crucial importance of research and experimentation as productive artistic routes. This process happens in my artistic practice and transforms it over time. Though when faced with failures or letdowns, my method of separation is not perfect. I often feel these ups and I feel these downs. This just morphs the artist. He evolves and I move forward. After watching and listening to Lonnie Holley, I was inspired and affirmed in the method of making that is bricolage. When it comes to music and sculpture, Lonnie's way of taking his surroundings and responding to them is something I practice in my own way. The way music is made is parallel to the way I often create video work, not relating in subject, but in the way it is building upon itself by reacting to itself. This creation becomes something natural and organic, unplanned and beautiful. This way of delivering a message to the viewer and or listener invites them into the spiritual nature that everyone possesses. Lonnie Holley performs in and outside of a church in one video, not singing about religion, but acting out his ideas in a spiritual setting, thus bringing the art to another realm, not one that we can touch. Rosa Minkham, The Glitch Moment. Today's communication strives to become exponentially faster and partly as a consequence to become more transparent. In the present pursuit of immediacy, signal speed has been increasingly prioritized. In contrast, earlier developments in audio and video technologies focused on the reduction of noise in order to improve media experiential quality. Today, quality seems to be of secondary importance. Recent technological developments appear to reverse or downplay the focus on signal quality as a genuine digital cultural concern. The idea that quality has been forsaken and led to more noise interrupting the transmitted signal is interesting to me. In my own practice, I use outmoded technology to express ideas of the dangers of advanced technology to the human psyche. Not only does the aspect of lo-fi exist in my work, but so does the importance of the experiential. The idea that when my work is viewed, it is not looked at, but it envelops the viewer. In a similar way that Disney World blocks any outside evidence within the park, I want my work to be uninterrupted by noise artifacts. A potential project made based off of this I call adding noise. Step 1, make something or find something you have made. Step 2, document this thing, whether in video or photo still. Step 3, document the result of Step 2, as accurately or inaccurately as you wish. Step 4, repeat Step 3 until original piece is close to being lost in translation. This new piece would be the result of the loss in signal quality, like playing a song on a CD, recording it with your iPhone, streaming it through Bluetooth, and listening to it over the phone. It may be recognizable, but you would have increased the noise to the point of changing its structure. If you take your art and analyze it through noise, it will either be something you hate or have a positive transformation that gives you new perspective. Barty Kerr, The Unexpected Freedom of Chaos. I break things to know them. She uses a simple direction of wanting to make something heavy seem light. The simple trick of pushing material to do what it doesn't want to do. The dichotomy of the work is rooted in the psychological idea of being broken into two paths, abstract and figurative, both being used as the only way to describe or translate what's inside, the possibility of the self. Breaking Through Shozo Shimamoto and the Aesthetics of Dakai by Mika Yoshitake. Gutai Art Association, Material Destruction, Butai no Dakai, to destroy an object by striking, used aesthetic strategies that utilized labor, and I find interested in that idea. that the labor is the driver for the art. This led me to Making by Tim Ingold in an article from lewispinfold.com, which is a website about creativity in children, but in it there's a quote: "Artworks become moments of materialized intensity that work to constitute a much larger, expansive, and continuously interconnected network of relations." This is a response to Ingold's writing, but not only that, under this is a video from a Gutai artist, Takaseta Matsutani. His work is obviously performance, but the labor that he undergoes, he explains as a spiritual experience, and for himself and from himself. He stated that even the conversation about his artwork is important. This discussing is labor and coming from inside. Violent assault on the complacency of mundane consciousness. Art Informal used informal shock and recorded Japan's atomic devastation through anthropomorphic and the tactile materiality, emphasizing the body and the flesh. This transformed the modern art establishment. Andre Serrano, Vandalism. The bumpy video, evidently shot with a handheld camera by someone who ran into the gallery with the attackers, intersperses images of the Serrano photographs with lettered commentary in Swedish, like "This is art," before showing the vandals at work. The fact that this act was videoed, to me, becomes infinitely more effective as an art piece than displaying the art in a normal, unhindered circumstances. All press is good press comes to mind, but it's more than that. Where I think art galleries fail is that they ultimately preach to the choir in a sense. The audience who step into a gallery are hardly ever the people who need to see the art, assuming the art's purpose is to incept certain ideas into the viewer. That is partly why I love the medium of film. Currently, I believe videos can get more mileage through more avenues and do the footwork that I can't. The shaky footage is the only reason we are talking about this. Stages of laughter. The interesting thing about memes is the way the language is understood at some level among the majority of the platform's users. It effortlessly communicates about news, politics, and current issues through a lens of absurdist or skit comedy. Millions riff off of each other. Instead of America reading a newspaper, the recent news comes in the form of satire that may be a few degrees to the left or to the right, but always abundant. The Artist Joke. Anthology of Black Humor by Breton. Humor paradoxically, be a way of coping with the most tragic of circumstances. There is nothing that intelligent humor cannot resolve in the gales of laughter, not even the void. For Hegel, the passage from tragedy to comedy is about overcoming the limits of representation. While in tragedy the individual actor represents the universal character he plays, he immediately is this character. Ibrahim Mahama, Vanishing Points. Mahama's approach is to Ghana in the active shaping of the future of his home country. He manages to operate with several formal languages in parallel, combining different types of storytelling in order to address heterogeneous groups of recipients. I relate to the way Mahama's art is made, highly aesthetic in the way he handles colors, materials, and forms, placing them in relation to the human body and its built environment, provoking a sensuous perception which repels or attracts the body. I feel as though through my own process, the sculptures and performative objects are formed through their aesthetics for the purpose of interacting with the viewer. A project proposal that I came up with in relation to Ibrahim Mahama's work. My current work focuses on bricolage and the creation of sculptures, videos, writings, and performance via recycling the world around me. Applying this method of making to a community outreach-like method would look kind of like this, going door to door and approaching the neighborhood asking for anything they may be willing to part with. If someone donates an object, I will then record a statement about this piece from the owner, allowing a continuous narrative to grow. Once all objects are collected from the surrounding area, I will build upon the narratives and construct sculptures in a gallery or central public space. The sculptures could potentially lead to a video work, become a performative object, or lead to a collection of writings that further engages in the stories provided by the community. I'm thinking about the aesthetics of an area or community literally forming the area. Most of my 3D pieces, in a lot of ways, are small portraits of Gainesville. The materials is what these citizens have donated or thrown away. So, my surroundings are as much a part of the work as what I eventually do to them. I'll end with this, from the documentary He Dreams of Giants with Terry Gilliam. The adrenaline comes from ideas, frustrations, anger, and without that, I'm a dead man. Life is hard. Art is hard. What really matters is getting involved in the work and to lose everything. Once the work takes you over, it's you and the idea, and that's it. The zone is the best drug on the planet. It's painful, but you're out of your ego. Your self-awareness disappears, and that's the addictive moments. I want to be back in there.